Superman, Supergirl, Superman, and Superman. All these heroes and many more will be teaming up in Crisis on Infinite Earths this December. We all know that the cross-dimensional hopping can get confusing.
Seems like TV from other dimensions has a somewhat looser feel to it.
So we've put together a guide of exactly how each super person will figure in the upcoming Crisis. Brandon Routh's Superman will be representing the Kingdom Come storyline. This means a few things. He will be older, so he'll have a Mitt Romney touch of gray hairdo.
Brought us whole binders full of women.
But he will also be a more hardened, cynical Superman. Imagine a serious version of the unshaven, pizza-eating Peter Parker from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. What has changed since Routh's last appearance in 2006's Superman Returns? If the Kingdom Come comics are anything to go by, he's gone through a lot. His longtime girlfriend, Lois Lane, survives a gas attack at the Daily Planet newspaper offices. She grabs a gas mask and tries to attack the Joker, who released the gas, but he fractures her skull, an injury that she later dies from. Enter Magog, a superhero without moral scruples who decides to take justice into his own hands by killing the Joker. He goes on trial for the killing, but the jury acquits him, deciding to put aside the exact letter of the law in favor of what they see as the greater good, a world without the Joker. Needless to say, this clashes with Superman's clean-shaven, all-American sense of morality, which leaves no room for vigilante justice. He's disappointed in the people of Metropolis. He's been fighting for them for all this time, going through all this extra effort to be a morally upstanding superhero, and this is how they repay him? By acquitting the murderous Magog? He skips town and retreats to his Arctic fortress of solitude, otherwise known as Ice Hotel Sweden. He stays there for 10 years and emerges older, grayer, and grouchier. He appoints himself chief of superhero police and starts rounding up anyone he deems too violent, throwing them into super jail. The jailed heroes revolt and civil war ensues. Batman and Lex Luthor join in.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Each leading their own faction of heroes. As you might have guessed, the four-way war does not end well. A nuclear warhead, fired by the United Nations, kills a whole bunch of the Caped Crusaders. Not Superman, though. He survives the blast, hooks up with Wonder Woman, and lives his life low profile as Clark Kent. This is the Superman Brandon Routh will be playing in Crisis on Infinite Earths. He will be older and wiser than the other two and will likely be giving them some fatherly advice about dealing with kryptonite and the moral conundrums that arise when you are an all-powerful superhero. He will also be facing his own interdimensional version of a very normal problem. Brandon Routh's Kingdom Come Superman won't be happy about it, but there will be two Lois Lanes in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Elizabeth Tillich, who already plays Lane in the Arrowverse's Supergirl, will be reprising her role. Smallville's Erica Durance will also be back after almost 10 years away from the character. Tyler Hoechlin and Tom Welling's Supermen will have no issue with their girlfriends appearing in the show, but Brandon Routh's Superman will likely feel very different. He'll be coming into the show after exiling himself to grieve over Lois Lane's death for a decade, only to be confronted with not one, but two new Loises. Tyler Hoechlin's Superman has not been a prominent character in the Arrowverse. He's only appeared in 5 episodes of the show, including last year's Elseworlds crossover event, where he fights as an evil version of himself, a battle he would have lost if it weren't for Supergirl. This makes sense because the show is about Supergirl. The show's producer Ali Adler described an unexpected source of inspiration for the off-screen influence of Superman. Our prototype is the way the president is seen on Veep. It's certainly inspired by so much of what Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character goes through. Ultimately, this is a show about Supergirl, and we really want to see it through her lens. You can bet that Hoechlin will be central to this year's crossover, judging by its dearth of Supermen, as well as the story it's based on. What do we actually know about the role these super people will play in Crisis on Infinite Earths? It's hard to say exactly, because the comic book story is long and convoluted to say the least. But there are some outcomes of the story that may leave fans of certain shows a little worried for their TV watching future. Let's start with Superman. In the comic, there are only 2 of him. There's Superman of Earth 2, who does just fine, surviving the whole event. But Superman of Earth 1, on the other hand, gets erased from the collective human memory. In theory, this will be Hoechlin's Superman. So for those of you who watch Supergirl, enjoy Kara's cousin while you can. As of December 8th, you'll forget you ever saw him. What's much more troubling for Supergirl fans is the death of the show's protagonist. In the comics, she's killed by a blast of energy from the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor as well as the Monitor are both played by LaMonica Garrett, a former slam ball player, so you can imagine that the moment of impact will be an absolute poster. In the comic, the whole thing is witnessed by her cousin Superman, who takes her back to Earth-1 for a memorial service and on to Krypton for her burial. Do you think the CW will stay true to the events of the comics? Will this be the end of Supergirl? Let us know what you think about this year's crossover in the comments, and as always, subscribe to Screen Rant.